So many people are using AI to generate UIs. We got so excited about UI generation that we forgot the UX process that contains all the user centered steps that allow us to build real solutions for our users. In this tutorial today, I'm taking you back on a journey moving from the old UX process to an AI powered UX process where we use AI at every step. This is a complete tutorial where we're going to build a healthcare app so you can continue to move with incredible speed, but you don't compromise on building the right things, building with quality, not just with speed. Roll up your sleeves, get your Figma ready, and whatever LLM you want to use, and I'm going to walk you through every step, providing you prompts and files along the way that you can find in the description. If you're new here, my name is Namat. I've been a product designer for the last 13 years. Today, I'm a design manager at Cvent. I'm also a UX and UI professor at Algonquin College, teaching design students how to create quality products. So first of all, let us align on the definition of the UX process. There's so many variations of this, but I want to use a version created by the NNG group from Jacob Nielsen and Don Norman. I want to give them a tribute for creating this process that has given designers the anchor to focus on the user at every step and create the right products. So generally, whichever way you see this process, it falls under three main categories: understand, explore, and materialize. And in the understand phase, we spend some time empathizing with the user by conducting research to develop understanding, and then analyzing that research in the define stage so that we can focus on the real problems that we want to solve. From that, we move to ideate and prototype, so we have something visual that we can test. We test, we iterate, we enhance before we move to the last phase of materializing what we're creating. And the value of that is tremendous. I know that at the age of AI, speed has become the most important thing. But if you're in a hurry, how do you know that you are building the right things that your user want? Understanding that speed is critical. That is why we want to use AI to really speed up every possible phase here, so we can still move faster, but without compromising on quality. So AI doesn't replace the UX process. It actually becomes an acceleration layer across it. Now, I have created a new version of the UX process, calling it an AI-powered UX process. And the focus that I want you to keep throughout what we do today is that at every step, AI accelerates so many of these stages, and we're going to look at how. But human judgment still becomes critical also at every step. And this is what we want to see in action. Now, one of the areas that AI is incredibly effective, because it will be dealing with text, with research, with information that you've gathered that will take you normally tons of time to assimilate and understand on your own. So to go through this phase and simulate it, we're going to work on a real app with a real problem to solve. So today, I am choosing to use the ChatGPT app. It is actually the same as Codex. However, I want to encourage you to use whatever LLM that you are comfortable with or that your organization is using. Whether it's Claude, Gemini, they're all actually very, very similar. I don't think the distinction is too significant at this point. So you should make the choice about the tool or the LLM that you want to use initially for this phase based on your organization. If your organization and your developers are using Claude, you just go with Claude. If you're working on personal projects and you have Gemini with a whole Google environment, that's fantastic as well. Recently, ChatGPT and Codex have been my personal preference for personal projects. First of all, because the usage is really, really good. The amount of things that I've been able to do just with the $20 subscription is incredible. I definitely can't do that with Claude. And also, I personally find it very effective. So, if you want to use ChatGPT like me and you're following along, get started by downloading ChatGPT for either Windows or Mac OS. I like using the app on the desktop. However, you can also use it right here in your browser. If you're downloading the app, please note that If you've had Codex before, Codex and ChatGPT have recently been merged. That was a surprise for me, so I'm calling it out for you. And you can always get started. A best practice is to get started by creating a project. The reason I mentioned creating a project is when you're inside a project, you can always add custom instructions so that your LLM understands what you're trying to do. For example, in my case, you will see I've added instructions about this particular app that we're creating. I'm a UX designer working on a healthcare appointment booking app. So here's the problem that we're going to be solving today with the UX process. We're working on a healthcare app. We want to improve the booking experience because they're saying many users begin searching for an appointment, but they do not complete their booking. The team does not know yet whether the abandonment is driven by appointment availability, provider selection, the insurance, or excessive form fields that the user would have to fill, or maybe another usability issue. So the goal of this research is to understand why users abandon the booking process. And we want to identify the most important UX problem to solve here. Now, I want to call out, even at the very beginning, do you see why research and the UX process is important here? We're starting by analyzing the problem, by basing it on some data and feedback we already have. And now we want to do further research before we jump in and start generating UI. But still, we're going to use AI for that. So here's what I have as a designer. So first of all, I have a product brief for you. This could be either a Word document or it could be something on Confluence or Notion, whatever your organization works with. And based on that, of course, you can customize ChatGPT to have link to those things. But we're going to assume today that this is just a document that was given and you can input. Before I can move forward, I need to identify what's actually wrong and what am I trying to solve. So in order for me to act properly, I need to interact with real users. I want to prepare a research plan and some interview questions that I can ask to a few people and observe where are they actually getting stuck. This will help inform what I do next. Now, if I wanted to do the questions and interviews on my own, it would take me a longer time, even if I've had previous templates, because this is a very specific problem. Now, this is where ChatGPT can be amazing. I prepared this prompt. Notice I'm working within the same project that already has the context that I have given it about the app, but it's always very helpful to provide more contexts. So I'm going to attach the product brief that I was given. That could be attached to the project or it could be attached to the prompt itself. So I'm saying, I'm a UX designer researching why users abandon a healthcare appointment booking flow. Help me create a lightweight research plan. Include key research questions, assumptions that we need to validate, recommend research methods, participant criteria, 8 interview questions, and watch out for that last one because the guardrails are important. I don't want AI to hallucinate and just give me something random. So I said, do not invent user findings. This is what we would call a guardrail in a prompt. Telling the AI what you do not want. Clearly separate assumption from evidence that we still need to collect. Now, for those of you who are interested in all those prompts, I'm going to show you during this video so you can replicate them for your process. I will give them to you in a file attached to this video. You will find it below in the description. Now, sending this, and now you will see ChatGPT will review the product brief, it will review my prompt, and it will give me a complete research plan with questions that I can use to interview my users. And of course, you can ask your LLM to give you those files in whatever format that is most comfortable for you. I've asked for Word documents in this case. So now I have 2 separate documents. One of them is the research plan that shows me what are the assumptions to validate, what evidence is still needed, and it made it like a checklist. The second document is the key research questions and interview questions that I would want to ask my users, including moderator guidance. Now, this is an incredible getting started guide, especially if you are a designer who's working on your own. I work in a large enterprise team. We have a whole research team that does all these things. But if you're on your own, getting started like this, rather than searching the web for templates of a research plan, is fantastic. We used to do that in the old days, just searching Google for some random template. But this is where AI is tremendous because it's searching so many patterns on your behalf. So AI here significantly accelerated the preparation for me to go into research and interviews. Where my human judgment is very critical is you need to review these things in details. I've been noticing recently, especially when AI generates so much text, it's like human beings are becoming immune to it. You just can't read all of it. But if it's your research plan, it is very critical that you read it, that you review all these questions and make sure they're actually viable. It's a great start that we've already had, but we want to validate, will these questions be right? Are they going to resonate with the users you're interviewing? Now, once we actually conduct the research, AI become extremely powerful at synthesizing it. This is how it can help us with the next stage that is define. We've done interviews with 3 people. In our case, let's say David, Elena, and May. Now we want to synthesize the results from what we've observed in this research, and we want to synthesize it and come up to a conclusion and define what we're trying to solve for and what kind of ideation will further allow us to test whether we have the correct solution. Imagine in a real scenario, you may have endless interview transcripts, you may have recordings from Zoom calls with your users, your product managers, you may have support tickets, usability notes, different analytics that you've collected. Where AI excels is to assimilate all this data and make sense of it for you. So instead of manually going through all that from scratch, AI can help you identify the reoccurring patterns, any unmet needs. But what also is critical at this stage is we want to make sure AI is not making assumption and it's actually sticking to the facts that are in the interviews. And we can make sure it does that in our prompt. So I'm going to show you a prompt example that I would use for this, that of course you can utilize yourself. But we're saying, analyze these 3 interview scripts. And of course, we can enter the interviews that we've collected as context. And we're saying, identify reoccurring goals, pain points, behavior, unmet needs, then cluster the findings into themes. That's very important. So many researchers used to do this in FigJam on their own. This is the analysis part of the UX process. In the very old day, we used to do that on sticky notes, collecting the different categories and just gathering them to make sense of that data. And now watch out for my guardrail in the prompt. I'm saying, for every theme, provide supporting evidence. Indicate which participant mentioned it. Separate observations from interpretations. Now, why these guardrails are important? Because I don't want AI to make the conclusions or hallucinate. I want it to synthesize and support whatever it shows me with facts from the real user interviews, ensuring it stays focused on the user. Do not invent information that is not contained in the transcripts. And of course, the synthesis gets done so much faster than you can do it yourself on human time. And if you're like me and you're beginning to struggle to see all these long texts that the LLM sends back to you, you can always ask it to generate a summary artifact to make sense of all the text that gets generated. So I did the analysis, but I want to see it visually because I'm a very visual person. So I always go for an extra prompt and I ask it to make sense of the information. So what we've learned from this research, there are 3 barriers that interrupt the path to an appointment. The availability being shown too late. Participants want to see the appointments before providing significant personal information. Insurance uncertainty. They want to make sure that the doctor they were going with has insurance. Provider comparison is difficult. They're struggling to compare the different doctors before they book an appointment. Another thing that AI could be incredible at, and you could pressure test it before you generate this main conclusion that you want to come up with, is you can tell it something like, based on the research provided, this is what I believe is our primary UX opportunity. The user needs to understand the appointment availability, the eligibility, but challenge me, challenge this conclusion. What evidence supports it? What evidence contradicts it? Give me other explanations. What additional research would increase confidence? So we're not going to go through this right now, but the reason I'm giving you this example is there's so many ways that you can make sure AI is guiding you and challenging your assumption before you move forward. And maybe after you pressure tested your conclusions, you can finally arrive at a definition of the user problem that you're trying to solve. And I've made it an artifact like this again with ChatGPT. It's going to be much harder for me to communicate so much research details with my stakeholders versus coming to them with something so concise, visual, and clean. Another area where AI accelerates the process, enhances the communication. So the user problem that I can show my product manager, I'm going to validate when I move to the ideation phase is the user needs to understand whether an appointment is available and appropriate for them before investing significant effort in the booking process. The design principle we're following here is we want to show them value before asking them for effort. You're familiar with this. Nobody wants to fill a 10-field form before actually knowing there is value in it. No one wants to put their health card number and every other detail before knowing for sure that this is going to get them to the appointment that they need. So we want to show value first. If we really manage to solve this problem, more users will reach the appointment selection. Fewer users should abandon the process before seeing availability, and users will understand who are the providers and their eligibility for insurance or whether they meet their criteria earlier. And now that we have a very well-defined problem that is based on facts, we used AI to even help us pressure test that our conclusions are correct. Now we can move forward into the next stage, that is ideation. Now, we are in the ideate phase because we took our time to actually understand what we're trying to solve. Do you understand the problem with how AI is being used today? The very essence of the problem is nobody is spending time on understand because of the easiness that made it so easy for any developer or product manager to simply ideate with a tool like Claude Design or Lovable. People are not spending time on the understand. And that is the issue. The problem is not the AI tools. The AI tools are wonderful. AI could help us accelerate all these incredible necessary phases, but we can't start right here. We took so much time to get here. So now we will ideate confidently, knowing that we are solving the right problem. And for this phase, I am going to choose Figma because in my experience, it has been the best tool for me to go through the full process, and you will see why. But of course, it's up to you. If you prefer to vibe code to ideate, that is totally fine. But let's see how I'm going to do it here and how we're slowly going to progress. There is a value in starting with low fidelity first. So we're going to ideate wireframes, and we're going to base our ideation on this problem that we have discovered and identified based on real research. But to ideate also, I'm going to use AI. And this is where the Figma design agent arises to the challenge. So when we talk about ideation, we're talking about exploring multiple solutions that will allow us to solve the problem correctly. So in this case, I selected the summary of the results finding that we've identified, all the themes, as well as the user problem that I defined. And here is the prompt that I gave the agent. With these two frames selected, you can select them in Figma. I told the agent, use the research results as context. Explore 3 meaningful different UX approaches for helping the user find an appropriate healthcare appointment quickly. The research indicates users care primarily about appointment availability, insurance eligibility, provider relevance. Explore. And here you go. I'm specifying the directions. I'm not just telling the AI. And that's what I've seen. Very often we take the easy route and we tell the AI, just explore 3 directions. But if I tell it to explore 3 directions without any specification, it's going to go in so many different directions. But we already know what we want to test for. I wanted to explore an availability first approach because this is what our research has shown us. First, let's test by availability. Second, a provider first approach. And third, a guided matching approach. And I provided all these 3 information on the direction that were informed by my research. And now, here's what the Figma agent generated for me. And I specifically asked it to stay in low fidelity at this point. This is not the time where you want to waste tokens or distract from the attention by generating high fidelity UI. This is not the time for aesthetic design. We're not focused on how the app looks right now. We're still in the UX stage where we're focused on the functionality. I hope this makes you see the difference. The non-designers who are vibe coding are interested in how it looks or whether it matches the design system. I'm not saying that's not important, but that is the next stage of design. At this stage, UX is about how it works. It's the experience. So here's the availability first approach. And if you look at this, I specifically asked in my prompt, and I'll give you the prompt for you to see, that I want just 2 screens. I'm not trying to create the whole app. But what we're showing here is the user comes to book an appointment, and we're going by availability first. So if they say today, we show them all the people or appointments that are available today. And once they select somebody, let's say they select this particular doctor, Alex Mercer, they get to confirm the booking. This is an availability first. The second approach is provider first. So once they try to get an appointment, we show them the different providers. We have all these 3 providers, and they get to choose which one works for them. Maybe they already have seen this provider. And you can see we're showing some details about the provider, whether they're verified or they're outside of our network, and they can select it. Now, the third approach would be a guided matching, as in you come here to find care, and we ask you a few things. What kind of care do you need today? And let's say you want a routine checkup, then we match you with the right doctor that can provide you with the service, and that is available. So it's based on matching, a guided matching that the system will know. Now that we have these 3 different solutions that are completely based on our real problem, we can move on to the next step. What would be ideal at this stage is to test. This is the return on investment for UX. The fact that you can validate when things are cheap. We have not built anything yet. This is where we want to know which approach really is what the user is looking for. So one way to do that, if you have access to your users, is to get back to them, maybe create another 2 screens in this low fidelity process, validate. Or if you have enough research or internal resources to test this, that's great. But the next step would be to go from this multiple ideas. Remember, in the old traditional UX process, we would do crazy 8s or something. So you have like 8 ideas. And then the next step would be to move from multiple solutions to 1. So now we want to pick one approach. Let's say I have tested this with users, I validated with a product manager, and then we decided that the best approach that we want to further develop is the availability approach, because most of our users are coming with urgent needs and they want to see the doctor that's available to see them today. So now let's further develop this solution. So this is the stage of the UX process where I want to move from low fidelity multiple ideas to a high fidelity wireframe that I can further validate. And at this stage, the visuals and aesthetics matter, I also want to make sure that I'm using my design system if I actually have that. So let's go through this. How I started with this, starting from the wireframes that I wanted, I can select that particular frame. You can, of course, bring it wherever you want to. And to access the design agent, you can always access it from here, right here on the canvas, or you can access it from the left navigation. But let's say you're accessing it from the canvas, you also have the same context plus button. When you click on that, do you see this is libraries? Clicking on libraries, you'll have access to all the design system libraries that you want to use. And you see I have the iOS and iPad OS selected. For some reason, if your library is not here, clicking on Manage Library allows you to go select and choose the different libraries that you want to turn on and make available. But you also have access when you click on Add Libraries to the different UI kits that ship with Figma. So make sure to know that you have a library selected. Make sure that green check mark right here is selected in a library, because you could add a library and not have it selected. So for us, it's right there. And what I said is, I told the agent to refine this appointment booking flow using the existing design system, and I told it what to prioritize: the appointment availability, clear provider comparison, insurance eligibility, and minimal cognitive load. Preserve the existing UX flow, use existing components and variables wherever possible. This is important. Again, these are the guardrails that will make sure you're not getting something generic, but you're actually using components from your design system. And to show you that this is what happened, I can already see this is an iOS button, but what I would like to show you is this is not just a random button that looks like iOS. It's actually an instance of the iOS component. Now, from a first pass, the agent managed to get me here. There's still a lot of errors, a lot of little things that I need to fix, a lot of like unnecessary lines. You can see that. But please remember, this is a first pass that this AI intern has done on my behalf. That is already great because I can easily come in here and make any changes that I do not want. You can keep iterating at this stage, refining either with AI, but the beauty is a lot of designers at this stage want to actually have control. I don't know about you, but for me and many of my team members, the UI generation is the funnest part. This is not where I'm looking for AI to replace me. We love control. We love refinement. We love being able to move from this generic look to something that's actually nice and creative. This is where human creativity matter, so that not all apps that we create look the same. Not all pages are just these patterns that are repeating from AI. And in my opinion, this is where you need to put on your human designer hat and go do something different with this high fidelity prototype. AI already got you like 80% there. This is great. Now, the creativity lies, the uniqueness lies, your human designer judgment lies in you creating something on top of this generic pattern. AI is incredible, but what comes here, this is not where it excels. It automated and got you where you want faster. Now you do the creative work that adds your signature. So before you move to prototyping, to test this with your users further, there's another step where AI can excel at, and that is a design critique. Now you want to refine this, but you want to make sure that you're catching this, or maybe you have another designer you're working with. AI is great at critiquing itself. So I came here to the agent and I asked it to critique this booking experience. But this is where you can use AI as a critic, not just a generator. I told it to identify any unnecessary fiction, unclear hierarchy, accessibility concerns, missing information and states. And I said, do not redesign it yet. Just tell me what's wrong. And initially, it gave me all this information right here. But like I said, it's getting harder and harder for me to read all these responses that AI does. So because I'm in Figma, I went one step further because the design agent excels at this, and I asked it to place all this critique for me in the format of annotations, pointing on the areas where I need to fix them. And Figma annotations came here, which is fantastic. Look at this. It even categorized the critique for me. So, for example, a blue is missing information, purple is missing states, yellow is unclear hierarchy, unnecessary friction. All the different areas I asked it specifically to critique. It's critiquing that for me and pointing to where the problem is. So let's say I came here, I can see that this general consultation has accessibility issues. Weak selected state. The only indicator of which category is active is a small blue radio button dot that users with low vision may not notice. Consider a more prominent visual treatment, filled background, border, or checkmark. This is fantastic, you guys, especially if you're working on your own. If you don't have another team that is supporting you with a critique, this is the best step to do before you move into prototyping. And if the critique is not enough for you, there is so much more you can do with AI. Some of my favorite things that are available to us through the Figma AI is content writing, the UX content writing. They have so many capabilities. We could do that through the agent directly, or you can come here to the actions menu below. And if you type content, you will see all the AI capabilities available to you. So you can replace the content and change it. You can translate. So let's say I want all this in French so that my localization team can review it and see if it works. Let me translate the screen to German to test it for localization. Duplicate the screen and translate it to German. If you want to see all the different ways you can play with your content, I have a whole video about some hidden AI capabilities in Figma. I'm linking, and here you go. This is my screen. I can already see that the text is coming out and it's not wrapping properly, which indicates to me so many things I have to correct in my design if my app is international. Now, my localization team will be very happy that I pressure tested for this. To edge cases that you may want to create before you move to prototyping, and you can identify certain edge cases that you might need. I'm not going to go through the full details of this because you know what to do by now. Come to the agent, define your prompt properly, tell it what to test for. In my case, I asked for 2 specific edge cases here and I told it what to test for. And now that we have all these screens, including the edge cases, it is time to move to a prototype with Figma Make. I want to pause here for a few seconds to ask you for a small favor. I've invested so many months learning this knowledge and so much time to actually create this tutorial. And I genuinely think it is some of my best contributions to our community. I am very keen to offer my courses for free. I do not want to charge money for them, and I do not create any sponsored videos on this channel. So I want to ask you to take a moment and support me by liking this video, engaging with it, hyping it. If you see that button, there's so many ways that you can support me by telling YouTube that it is valuable so it can allow it to reach other designers. If it wasn't needed, I wouldn't even ask you. And now let's go back to the UX process. Building prototypes have become significantly easier with Figma Make. In the past, we needed to connect all these screens together in the old-fashioned prototyping way. I had so many tutorials for you about that years ago, where you would come to the dot and just manually connect it, and we would have all these endless connections. Fortunately, we no longer have to do this. There is 2 ways that you can proceed from here for a high-fidelity prototype. If you're using Claude or Codex or Gemini to generate things, and again, I highly recommend at this stage that you base the decision of the tool based on what your team is using. For example, my team uses Claude, so it may be a good idea for me to generate my prototype in Claude. However, from my observation and comparison, especially with the recent updates where Figma Make leverages Claude, if I wanted accuracy, if accuracy of my design is the goal, the best tool from my testing at this stage is Figma Make, because it's the main tool that understands Figma design. It's within the same ecosystem. Claude may be able to translate this design for me, but it will not be as accurate as Figma Make, leveraging either Claude or Codex or whatever LLM that it's using by default. And I'm going to show you this. But before I do, the only reason you would want to use Claude and that will get you faster to production would be if you're working in a smaller startup where you have a good dev environment, your developers could set you up for this next phase. As in, if you have an environment where you can create with Claude, leveraging your design system, that would be fantastic because what you generate with the Figma MCP and Claude would be very close to your production code. And at this point, this is what I would call the path of a design engineer. And I'm linking for you a video above here about how to work with your developer to become a design engineer, because not only can you create just a random prototype for testing, but what you generate could be very close to production. That will save a lot of steps for your developers. They would only correct, enhance, work on the back end, and move forward. And of course, that will really speed up the development life cycle. And I would say this may become the future of design. But that is not something that every organization is ready for. Like I said, I work in a very large organization, and we are far from having designers push to code simply because it's way more complex. Our systems are way more elaborate from designers being able to push back PRs. But that could change for anybody anytime. So if you are set up, please choose your tool for prototyping based on that. If you're not fully familiar with the Claude and Figma MCP path, I have so many tutorials for you. I'm linking to the most recent one above. It's a fantastic way to go. But now I'm assuming you are the average designer who is far away from production code right now, and you simply want a good prototype that you can validate with your product manager and you want to take for testing. The next step in the UX design process is to go for usability testing. So let's create a prototype for that. And Figma makes a fantastic tool because with all these screens selected, I come right here to the prototype, I click on it, and once I have it selected, you will see this button appears right here, send to Figma Make. Once I click it, Figma Make will open up on my behalf, and you will see it will include this prototype as context before it starts building. So here, it's also important to give a decent prompt and not just assume that because it has the design, it will know everything that I need. The prompt that I give here will also specify all the details that I want to make sure exist in my prototype for the usability testing. So if you have your usability tests prepped already, you already know what you want to test for, or you can further enhance as you go. But I'm saying turn this healthcare appointment booking flow into an interactive prototype, and I'm telling it what we should be able to do. Select an appointment type. View available appointments, select an appointment, review appointment details, and confirm the booking. And I'm saying include loading state, no result states, appointment no longer available state. So basically all the edge cases we create. And here you go. After some time, Figma created my exact screens. And as I come to the new Figma Make, I just want to call out that they just recently added this wonderful new button, which is the edit button that allows you to actually edit things directly inside Figma Make or send comments to the agent with the annotate button. If you're curious how to use Figma Make in a more advanced way, please check out this video that I've recently created with all the improvements of Figma Make so you can leverage it to its highest capability. It also shows you an end to that design engineer path where you can send pull requests directly back to the code. I'm currently running a pilot with my enterprise team to do that. Okay, so here's our prototype. Let's hit play. Mind you, I have not gone and corrected all these screens, so you see the status bar is looking just so weird. It's not the iOS status bar, but that's on me. I should have done those corrections as a designer in Figma Design before actually coming here to Make or sending them to Make. But the difference is this is fully interactive. I can see this. So it's saying, how can we help you? So I want a general consultation. I'm going to see available appointments. and it's showing me the calendar because remember the direction that we selected is we want to go by availability. That's the approach we're prioritizing. So this is the time that's available. And based on the time, I can see the different doctors that are available. So I selected this doctor, Alex Mercer, right here. I can describe the reason, and that's so nice. I can actually type it. So now when my users are actually testing this prototype, they can get a full confirmation. And I can see that I've done some errors. I selected Alex and now I'm getting Sarah Chen. So I need to correct that. But once again, this is due to my design because I have not made those corrections there. So my highest recommendation is make your corrections here. Make sure your Figma design is fully polished, reviews, and corrected before you move it to Figma Make, because definitely it's much easier to do that. But either way, when you are in Make, you can make these corrections, of course. If we use this newly edit button, we can select something and make that correction. Let me actually correct the name of this doctor. So I'm coming here to the edit. I will select his name and I'm going to say Sarah Chen. And here you go. This is very nice. But you will see once I've corrected it, it sent this information to my AI. And if I want this to get applied in the code, I have to click on apply changes. So this becomes permanent. So there's a lot of editing ability within Figma Make. I can always, this is a button that is copy to design. If I want to copy something, some change that I've done here in the design, I can copy it. I can go back to my design file and I can always paste it. So this connection in the Figma ecosystem is what makes it incredibly valuable for me as a designer at this refinement stage. And now, if I'm finally happy with my fantastic prototype, I'm ready to test it. Now it's time to go and create a usability testing scenario that we can take back to our user, test, validate that our work is worth sending to production. So I would say usability testing is the best approach, having interviews and testing with your users whether the design is solving their actual problem. So to prepare for my usability testing as the solo designer or the researcher, I can ask my preferred LLM to help me create a lightweight usability test. And this is a prompt that I could use. I'm going to skip through that and show you a sample usability test that I made into an artifact, but it gives me a simple scenario, task 1, task 2, and task 3 that I would want to ask my user to complete. And of course, there's so many ways you can customize that to your liking, to what you actually need to run your test. AI is a fantastic assistant at this stage, and you would have to review and make sure the test, do it with a few people internally to make sure that the testing questions and scenario will actually help you to validate what you are trying to do. And it matches your prototype that you generated with Figma Make. So just like during discovery, AI can help you prepare the research, give it your prototype, your research questions, your assumptions, your target users, and ask it to create scenarios with the context of the prototype, the tasks, the follow-up questions, and the behavior that you should be observing in the user. I would even go one step further to ask it to check if your questions are leading, because you don't want to ask leading questions that could confuse the user. Then conduct your actual usability testing with real users. Once the testing is done, we're back to another task that AI can be super helpful with. Here is an example prompt that I used. AI is very good at synthesis. Give it the observations and the notes from your usability testing and ask it to identify any recurring usability problems, severity, frequency, affected steps. Ask for the supporting evidence and make sure that it separates what the participants actually did versus what they said. Remember, these are the basic rules of UX. There's a difference between what they say and the reality is more obvious with what they do, what we're interpreting from that behavior. That distinction matters. And to skip through that phase, because you know how to do this now, I'm showing you a sample research synthesis that ChatGPT was able to create for me. I asked for my final research synthesis to tell me what are the high priority elements that I need to cover. The main thing that got highlighted is that the insurance coverage needs greater visibility before the appointment selection. The users in my interviews indicated that they need to know if that doctor is insured or not. That's very important for them, and it's not highlighted sufficiently inside my prototype. And this is where we come to the iterate phase. Because AI accelerated so much of the creation and helped us with that to speed it up, it became dramatically cheaper to also iterate. Look at this. I can use the Figma agent, or I can come manually work on this enhancement of adding the insurance and showing which of these doctors accepts insurance and which of them does not. And now I have a very quick before and after, and I can very easily send this to Figma Make and ask it to make those fixes on the cards that we created. But instead of treating usability testing as something that happens at the end, with AI, we can create a much tighter loop. We design, we prototype, we test, we learn, we iterate, and then we repeat. We fix problems by testing earlier. This is the very value of UX. This is what UX has brought to the whole design process and why it made the product creation cycle much more valuable. We're able to create quality things because we're aware of our users' feedback at every stage. But at no point in time should we give up on human judgment. Designers still need to orchestrate. Designers still need to be the ones making human judgment and verifying everything that's getting generated. So the most dangerous thing that you can do as a designer is prompt, generate, ship. Just because AI made generation incredibly cheap, we shouldn't compromise on what we're building, because it's so much easier to build the wrong things faster. The workflow that you should fight for instead within your organization is evidence, user-based evidence, generate, evaluate, test, and iterate. AI will increase your ability to generate, but it cannot decide which experience is worth creating. That is still our job. So please don't give up on that. Don't give up on fighting for that. I hope this tutorial shows you why and reminds you of the very essence of your role and why it matters more than ever. Thank you so much for sharing my journey.